Good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to the York Festival of Ideas. My name is Jane Grenville. Back in the day, I taught the archaeology of buildings in the university, and I'm very pleased to say that a member of our panel is an alumnus of that course. Before that, I was involved in conservation as a professional. So I'm very interested to hear everything that we're going to listen to today. So to our subject today, we are going to be thinking about heritage and technology, specifically in the context of Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, which we all watched going up in flames in horror on our television screens on the 15th of April 2019. And for me, at least, that was an immensely triggering event because it made me think about the south transept of York Minster going up in flames in July 1984, in the very first few months that I was living here. So Notre Dame is being studied in very great detail, and we're going to hear about some of the technology. And this is in order that it can be restored to its last known state. York Minster was carefully recorded, but this was 40 years ago, so the technology simply was not there. And it was as far as possible restored to its last known state, but with some very deliberate modern interventions into it that reflected the craftsmanship of the time. Now, I'm quite interested. I haven't heard these people talking about it, so I'm very interested to hear how the technology has advanced since the 1984 fire at York, and how heritage technology and heritage craft skills are working together. And we have scientists, technologists, and craftsmen, and we will be hearing from them. Our speakers are Dr. Livio de Luca, and I will give everybody a slightly longer introduction just before they start to speak. But he is the research director at CNRS, which is the Centre National de la Recherche Scientifique, part of the French government cultural heritage unit. Then we're going to hear from Mike Dennis, who is a carpenter and who took two MAs, a bit of a sucker for punishment, one in timber building conservation and one in historic buildings at the University of York. Claudine Loisel is a glass conservation specialist, and she's head of the stained glass division of the Laboratoire des Recherches des Monuments, which again is part of the Ministry of Culture. And then our last speaker today is Alex McCallion, who is the Director of Works and Precinct at York Minster, and who is in charge of some very remarkable developments that are going on here in York at the moment. So those are our speakers. We've asked them all to speak for just 5 minutes, which is quite ambitious. And then we are going to have about half an hour in which we can have a panel discussion and then leave some time at the end for audience questions. But I will probably be picking up the audience questions during the panel discussion. So we'll see how that goes. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Livio in a little bit more detail. Hello, Livio. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Very good. Excellent. It's very different to chairing something when everyone is sitting in the room.
Of course.
So Livio's research activities focus on surveying, geometric modelling, and the semantic enrichment of digital representations of heritage objects. When I started out recording, I had a tape measure and a pencil and a piece of paper, and that was it. I graduated onto a total station theodolite, but I never got as far as 3D imaging, which I think is absolutely standard now. And I think that Livio is developing that to give us really very, very detailed representations of objects. And I'm interested to hear what he has to tell us about the work that's going on at Notre Dame. Livio, over to you.
Thank to all the organizers for this kind invitation. So I will illustrate my talk with 5 minutes video. And following the 2019 Notre Dame fire, our scientific efforts have focused on understanding the architectural elements that exist before the fire and extracting valuable information from the preserved materials for, of course, archaeological conservation and restoration purposes. So by integrating the new digitization and modeling systems, we have been able to study the site from a geometric, structural, but also an acoustic perspective, by emphasizing within this framework the importance of the cross-disciplinary study. So we have embraced what we consider as a digital humanism approach. And this involves creating a collaborative digital resource that brings together archaeologists, anthropologists, architects, historians, chemists, physicists, and computer scientists together. And data, as you can imagine, plays a crucial role in our effort. Because data spans centuries of history before the fire, the critical hours during the disaster, and the ongoing years of restoration. So by working together, we built a shared digital ecosystem that connects the physical structure of the cathedral with the data and with the knowledge accumulated from various disciplines. So one key concept in our project is the digital twin. So this concept is essential for documentation and for the collective study. So by integrating the geometric and the visual data from the past, the present, but also the future states of the cathedral, we can compare the undamaged and destroyed parts, extracting information from studying and virtually rebuilding the missing section. And for that, we introduced some custom 4-dimensional scanning devices to digitize the debris removal operations, to preserve the spatial location of all these elements. And this 3D digitization of various remains has been important for recovering the past state, but also they are crucial today for the ongoing and future research and documentation, especially concerning the recent archaeological discoveries. So on the digital twin, we have built a reality-based semantic annotation approach that allows us to project data from multiple stakeholders and levels of description into a hybrid multi-dimensional space. This method has enabled us to gather and to spatially locate data related to post-fire diagnosis, including the conservation state of stones, woods, metals, and structures. Another key concept in our approach is the digital continuum, because during the urgent interventions following the fire, we faced the task of recovering, sorting, and storing thousands of remains. So it was essential to manage the documentation of this various state by connecting the data from recovery operations, temporary storage, on-site archaeological study, and in-laboratory material analysis. So we developed documentation processing methods to support the daily data production, enabling sorting, cataloging, and access to this data. And after more than 4 years of work, our digital ecosystem hosts a vast collection of photographs, 3D point clouds, technical drawings, structured 3D models, and thousands of vocabulary terms coming from different disciplines, and thousands of semantic 3D annotation, which represent the current multi-layered views on the entire building, on this common denominator. And I believe that this comprehensive view addressed the restoration challenges, of course, but it provides also a foundation for new levels of study and interpretation covered by a large group of scientists today involved in a collaborative effort. So by incorporating all these insights from the disciplines into this shared digital ecosystem that we are continuing to develop, we are enhancing, of course, our collective understanding. At the same time, we are co-producing a new scientific research, a digital-born heritage for future generations. I will stop here. Thank you.
That's astonishing. Thank you so much. I talked about the fact that I hadn't really engaged with 3D recording before I went off to do other things in the university, but actually I realized that it's 4D recording. And that is just spectacular. Thank you very much indeed, Livio. And it will be really extremely interesting now to think about the ways in which the knowledge that you are generating, both about the cathedral itself, but also about these recording techniques, can be transferred to other projects. So thank you very much indeed, and look forward to the discussion. And now I must move on to Mike, who I think is sitting waiting in France for us as well. Yes,
I am indeed.
Jolly good.
Hello, Jen.
Hello. So Mike and I have actually never met, but he is a graduate of 2 York master's courses, one of which used to be called the Archaeology of Buildings, and it's now called Historic Buildings, and is very, very dear to my heart. And the other one runs from the museum at Singleton in Sussex, and I've also been very involved in that, and that's a very practical, course. But I noticed that your first degree is actually in Chinese studies.
Yes, it is. It is indeed. It's slightly different, but
it's been quite a long road, hasn't it?
It has.
So Mike is both a carpenter and an experimental archaeologist, and has been working on Notre Dame. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say. Please, off you go.
Thank you, Jane. Yeah, I mean, and hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to the conversation today. So technology has touched everything, and I want to focus on what it really means to a lot of us, and a lot of what I'll talk about now is really touched by that technology. So I'd like to start by expressing the importance of the coming together of passionate, driven people that allows monumental projects the Paris to be achieved. The success of this project was determined, I think, many years before the flames ripped through this World Heritage Site. 100 or even 100 years ago, before the technology that we have now, foresters planted the acorns that future generations of foresters would tend. These would become the posts and the beams of the iconic cathedral roof as it stands today. Tools forged in the centuries past would be pressed into service once more. Even contemporary artwork of long-lost iron and steel would guide the hands of modern-day smiths. The beauty, skill, and endurance shown in the material of buildings created by the hands of craftspeople would inspire and study the revival of forgotten crafts. So I have questions. If people such as the architects Remy Fremont and Cedric Tronçonneau hadn't studied the carpentry of Notre Dame in 2014, if the dendrochronologists and digital innovators such as Livio hadn't studied this incredible structure, or even if that technology hadn't been invented, would we have been able to recreate this masterpiece? So many people like François Calame, founder of Charpentiers Sans Frontières, that's Carpenters Without Borders, not only helped to inspire a new generation of axe-wielding hewers, but were able to mobilize a group of us in 2020. So they were able to mobilize a group of us in 2020 to demonstrate recreation of the 13th century roof using traditional techniques was possible. Now, there are groups all over the world that are keeping our traditions alive, alongside the French carpenters, individual from the Carpenters Fellowship in the UK, and the Timbers Framers Guild from the United States, put their lives on hold in order to be part of this incredible project. And that's alongside trades and crafts from all across France. We were fortunate that all of these people and innovations came together. However, I don't think we can be complacent. My question's this as well. What if Beverley Minster were to burn down? What if York were to burn down again? Would the UK have the trees? 31.5% of France's forest. Compare that with 13.2% forest cover in the UK, and one can see the challenges. Fortunately, the solutions of many of our problems are shared. As part of our effort to combat climate change, many of us are already moving towards a plant-based diet, for example. Researcher Hannah Ritchie from Oxford University's Our World in Data suggests that if we achieve this switch, then global land use for agriculture can be reduced by 75%. It's small steps like meat-free Mondays or even universities pledging to transition to 100% lead towards making more land available for biodiversity, including those trees that we need for future repairs to our built heritage. I have no doubt that if a disaster were to happen in the UK, that craftspeople from all over the world would be willing and eager for an opportunity to help. Working at Atelier des Monts in Normandy, I was inspired by how young and capable many of the team were. But how do we make sure that this continues and that there are future craftspeople? Personally, I feel that as a craftsperson, I have the responsibility to help and educate future generations of makers and researchers. Part of my role during the project was to look at the evidence that we could see from the 13th century timbers in order to create as closely as possible what was there previously. And it was only using technology that I was able to do that. And here's a little photo of some of one of the trusses finished. Now, I feel that each one of us doesn't have to have had this amazing experience and be in this position in our craft to be the spark that leads interest in our past and future heritage. Each trip to a museum with our children and grandchildren, each time we help them make with their hands, and each time we watch a historical movie together, or even do that amazing 3D visit under Notre Dame de Paris, which is absolutely incredible. It's an opportunity for exciting and fun experiences and exploration. Technology too is a tool that can lead to fascinating avenues of interest and learning and can complement traditional skills. However, I don't know what my forebears, would have said if they'd seen my iPad next to my axe and my tool cart. Thank you very much.
That's lovely. Thank you, Mike. What a call to arms. I shall never again refer to carpenters only to axe wielders and iPad wielders.
iPad as well.
Yes, it's an interesting issue, isn't it? You know, the way in which that degree of technological backup can help you really to think hard about the way in which you use your skills. And I think that's something that Alex is likely to come back to as well, in the context of stonework. But that was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, and look forward to your contribution to the discussion.
Thank you, Jane.
Great, thank you. Alex, who is the Director of Works and Precinct at York Minster, and with whom I work quite closely, is now going to talk to us about the technological developments that are going on here as part of the delivery of our neighbourhood plan, which is a very large master plan that has been adopted as a piece of supplementary planning by our city council, and which involves, amongst other things, the creation of a centre of excellence for heritage craft skills and estate management. So, Alex, I'm going to hand over to you to show your slides. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Good morning, everybody. As Jane said, I'm the Director of Works and Precinct, so I have the huge privilege of leading the team who are responsible for the care and all of the restoration of York Minster and its 7-hectare precinct. So despite being the largest Gothic cathedral north of the Alps, the Minster is actually an incredibly fragile building. I'm just trying to move my slides on. Oh, here we go. The slide before you is a little microcosm of some of the very serious cavernous decay that we're seeing across the cathedral. So we're currently working on the restoration of the south choir aisle, which is a 10-year restoration campaign, but we're only restoring about 12% of the face of the cathedral. So we have an enormous amount of restoration ahead of us, and we have a team of 14 masons. So we have limited budget to deliver this restoration. So we need to be doing more restoration for the same budget. And so our neighbourhood plan is embedded in the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So we're looking at technology in its broadest sense, including how we begin our journey to net zero. So really embracing renewable energy on the cathedral and within the precinct to decarbonise our precinct. The biggest threat to York Minster now is climate change through extreme weather events. And also to ensure that we always have the skilled craftspeople to look after the estate. So that is why we've established the precinct as an international centre of excellence, which is a campus-based facility split across 2 sites. So our heritage quad is where our stonemasons will be working in new workshops with 7 bedrooms for our first-year apprentices. So the building has been designed to inspire the next generation of craftspeople. So we've always got people coming through to sustain that knowledge transfer from one generation to the next. Now, this is all around the backdrop of falling capacity in England and a lack of skilled and trained craftspeople. So we're trying to address that. So this will become a big training centre where we continue to share that knowledge with our international partners. Now, this is a CGI of the building. We're not just talking about this anymore, we're actually on site. It will be complete and operational by the 1st of September, which is a little bit scary because it's getting closer and closer. The other part of this is our new technology hub. So this is a new development where we will be installing our 5- and 6-axis cutting machines. These are currently being constructed at Breton in Italy. So we will have these brand new state-of-the-art facilities supported by state-of-the-art computer systems. So we're embracing the future as a tool to care for the past. So this is up to our masons how they use the machinery, and the final decision of where we take the machinery sits with the skilled craftsmen and women, not me or the management team. It's with the craftspeople, because we want to protect the cathedral. Everything we're doing is for the best of York Minster, to make sure it's here for future generations to enjoy as we do today. And again, we are nearing completion of the technology hub, and our saws are arriving in 4.5 weeks, which is, again, a bit scary when you see that picture I took yesterday. Some of the technology we're implementing, this is a brilliant piece of technology that's used in the kitchen worktop industry to measure stone work surfaces. We're actually using it to template our tracery windows when we work in partnership with York Glaziers Trust. So traditionally, we'd have used stencils, and that templating process would have taken 10 days for a tracery window. With our new ProLiner, it takes 2 days. So an 80% saving on time, and time is money. So we can be doing more restoration for that same budget. So we're not losing craft skills, we're actually upskilling the team and doing more restoration. Now, the statue of the late Queen that was installed on the west front of York Minster 2 years ago was actually created using this symphony of traditional craft skills and modern technology. So Richard's traditional clay maquette, we then 3D scanned that model, blew it up on a piece of polycarbonate, well, on the machine, on the computer first, but then used polyurethane to carve out the maquette. Polyurethane is used in the car industry. It's not usually used on Gothic cathedrals as a life scale model. And what was brilliant about that is we could actually put the maquette up into the niche where the statue was heading. So our approvals committees could actually see the massing on the building. So it speeded up that whole permissions process as well. This is the final maquette produced by Richard. This is actually Richard Bosson's, our master carver, who designed and created the statue, actually scanning it. You can see the scanning data points on the maquette. And then we used photogrammetry. So this was just done on a normal iPhone. So 500 photographs created the model of the statue's head. And then Richard really led us in how he wanted to use the machinery. So we all thought we'd go to 2 mills and then he would finish everything by hand. But you can see the diadem and the Queen's hairline. There's very little reference points on there. So it would have been really, really difficult for Richard to continue to hand finish this. So at Richard's instruction, we took it to 0.5 millimeter. So that gave Richard all of the reference points he needed for the 6-axis milling machine to cut a 3-ton piece of Lapine limestone to 1.1 tons. So you can see all the machine is doing is the laborious roughing out stage. The bit that would have taken Richard 4 months took the machine 160 hours. So this is a rather special, glamorous example of how we're going to be doing all of our stone restoration moving forwards. The machine will do the laborious task. Our stonemasons will lead that and take the milling to where they want it, and then finish by hand. There will be no 100% machined stone on York Minster, and we've protected that with the support of Fabric Advisory Committee in our stone practice policy. So any change from that in the future, when I'm no longer here and Jane's no longer an FAC, it has to go to London to change that. And of course, the answer would be no, you can't do it. So, and then here is the maquette and the statue when it came back from the stone supplier. And you can see here large pieces of stone behind the neck and the diadem and around the Order of the Garter gown. So it was stabilized for transportation. And then Richard spent the 4 months finishing it off. So through our Centre of Excellence, we've partnered with institutions around the world. We're looking globally and taking the best ideas from our partners and bringing them back to York as a sort of holding this knowledge to share through the heritage sector. So we want to continue to learn from others and others learn from us and to share training opportunities, because what I've learned in this project is that we're all dealing with exactly the same issues: climate emergency, extensive restoration, lack of funding, the importance of apprenticeships. So it's continuing those conversations and working in partnerships with others. So I've gone a little over 5 minutes, Jane, but I hope I've squeezed everything in there.
That's absolutely fine. Thank you very much, Alex. And it has been quite a journey. As Alex says, I sit on the advisory committee, and we have discussed the minutiae of how these machines work. And we thought long and hard about the statue, and I'm sure we will think long and hard about the templates and then about the way in which both the tracery and the carvings, the gargoyles, are produced in future. And all of this, I think, I hope, I trust, enables craftsmanship rather than replacing it. And that really does seem to me to be the most important thing. And
absolutely, which is why it has to be a skilled craftsperson who's controlling the machines and telling the machines what to do. So it's another tool. And I think if you'd given these machines to the medieval masons, they'd have snapped your hands off. They were always pushing the boundaries of technology.
Yes.
Come on to that a bit later.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Alex. I'm going to move on to Claudine. Claudine Loisel is a stained glass conservator, and she works at a microscopic and also a nanoscopic scale. She's part of a team of historians and conservators and materials specialists who are working on the conservation and protection of the glass at Notre Dame, and is head of the stained glass division of the lab, as I mentioned earlier. Glass, of course, is a very particular material, and it was one of the big issues in the York fire, was the state of the rose window in the gable end after that colossal heat. And a huge amount of innovative work has been undertaken at York, both on that window and subsequently, particularly on the Great East window. So I'm very, very interested to hear from Claudine about her work. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you for this invitation. This is a great pleasure to be with you today to this York Festival of Idea. Yeah, so thank you for this possibility to be with you. And yes, it was a special moment, this fire in Notre Dame, but it was, as you say, Jane, it was in 1984, such a chaos for you in York. And after this emotion step and this, we can say, dumbfounding effect, it was necessary to focus on the work. And what I have to say is that we direct in the evening the connection with, I will begin with the human part of this project. And the moment was really important to be in connection with all the conservators, all the scientists in conservation, all the architects. And I was direct in connection with York because I have to thank, this is the opportunity to thank Sarah Brown for her help. And Sarah is director and chief executive of the York Glacier Trust. And it was really useful to be all together to plan the different steps from Notre Dame. So you can see here the image. As I said before, people are really the important part and manage all the situations. So you have here, we will see just the blue point. It was really useful to remove the panel from the upper part to have time and to have the security and to concentrate on the vault. And during the first year of the project, from 5 years, we work on the protocol for lead decontamination, and we bring technology in this part of this job. We make some preliminary tests on the chapel, and you can see all the conservators who would take part of 25 windows in 9 days. It was incredible this time. And before working, it was really important to produce the documentation to be sure to be well organized. This is why the art historians were really important in this project. They produce photography, they produce plan, they produce numeration of the windows to know exactly where we are and what we have to do. So here you can see different pictures from the upper part from the windows from the 19th century and now from the 20th century from Jacques Le Chevalier. And one of the most difficult time in this time, as you can see here, you need to be quick and you need to be safely, and you need technology. And here you can see it was the first time we used the container to remove the panel, because we didn't have all the scaffolder for the nave. And it was one difficult decision to take, and I remember it was with Rémi Fromont. He was there and said, "Okay, Claudine, should we do it or not?" So we managed with the experience of all the conservator restorators. We take the decision to remove the panel with such kind of a container. During this project, technology was useful also for the personal protective equipment. The protection of the people was really necessary, and you can see on the picture the different equipment for the removal of the panel, but also after in different state of, and especially in the time of decontamination. It means removal the lead particle on the stained glass windows. It was necessary to have the well equipment. Here you can see an important time. See, what I want to say is the conservator network. Also, for Notre Dame, you had 8-9 different studio from stained glass restoration. So it was a huge project to manage. And that, of course, you have an important phase. This is the harmonization of the work, because each studio was everywhere in France, and it was necessary to have a moment, a time to compare and to take the decision if we go more or less. The research, as you see, Livio show you the scientific project, and we were also, there is the glass working group was really involved in the scientific project from Notre Dame. And I just want to focus on one result. It was necessary to have some help from New York, for example, feedback from what's happened in other situation like that. And what was terrible in France, it was really useful in July 2020 during the Nantes Cathedral fire. It was a totally different situation, but it was really useful to have the information from York, to have the benefit from Notre Dame to help the Cathedral Saint-Pierre-Saint-Paul of Nantes, because the windows was really destroyed. This is the occidental window was destroyed. So during this project, we managed a different research project. Here you can see all the partners. As you can see, we never think we need to be a lot of people in science to have a good result. So this is all the different laboratory we are working on glass. And here you see the first project, and it was really interesting to make a point on conservation or restoration of stained glass, and to have a diagnosis and characterization. And what I want to focus on this project is training for young professionals, because you can see on the right, Julie Monique, she is now restorator, but at the beginning of when she removed the panel with Isabelle Baudouin, she was student, and she learned a lot during this project, and this is necessary to have the transmission, to have the continuity, and she make a master PhD, a master 2 on this subject, and it was really important. It was another project, the interaction of lead. As you know, lead is a complicated material, but this material is so useful in the field of stained glass windows. It's necessary to have it, and it was interesting to see the impact of the lead on the different material, on glass, on stone, on metal. and to see the impact and to prepare to develop the protocol for decontamination. It was really useful for this project in Notre Dame. And I will focus on this research project. You can see Astrid Azioli, and we make some analysis at Aglaé. This is l'accélérateur Grand Louvre d'analyse élémentaire. This is a specific project on glass because this tool uses ion beam analyze and gives the possibility to have the glass composition of the painting, but also of the glass. And this is really interesting because you have the quantitative glass compositions. We can compare to the DNA of the human corpus. And we develop during the PhD of Astrid, and she will finish next year in March. We develop the way to have much more data, and due to the quantity of data, we need to use artificial intelligence with field like deep learning machine to have better results and to have a faster processing for large quantity of data. And this is a really interesting project in partner with the EDF, Electricity in France, and Alexandre Girard, expert in statistics and in artificial intelligence, and my colleague Claire Pacheco from the Center of Research of Museum of France and me. We are manage the coordination of this project. So as you can see, a lot of young people were involved in the project and bring a lot of energy and results really interesting for Notre Dame, but also for other monuments. This is just to speak about the art historian. We are always working. I'm chemist, so we are always working scientist and art historian to see the object, to observe the surface, and to proceed to the datation. And you can see here one of the work of the art historian, they proceed to the restoration chart. It means they can differentiate the origin of the glass just by eyes, and they do the job for the 3 roses, because as you know, or maybe not, the roses were not restored. This is a project which is coming in next years to proceed to the restoration of the roses. So just some publication. If you need much more information, you can read the Journal of Cultural Heritage, and you will find all the results, and especially the first point in blue, coordinated by Karine Boulanger. This is a feedback on methodology, and this is, from me, I think so, an important article who gives the instruction to be better in the future if it's happened again, and to do our best. And you have different literature, so maybe you can have a look. So thank you. I finished. Sorry for the difficulties with the first connection.
That's okay. That's lovely. Thank you very much indeed, Claudine. I think that, to take us through all of the different analytical techniques, and then to see the way in which that leads into the art history and of course onto the craftsmanship for the future. It's been really, really helpful. Thank you. Thank you for being so patient with us as we.
Okay, just one point. Of course, when we finished, all the results will go in the 3D Notre Dame from Livio.
we can all look forward to that. Thank you very much indeed. That's great. You. Okay, so we've just got a few minutes left. I mean, there's been so much information there, and it's been absolutely terrific. I'm just interested to ask you all really about your. I suppose if I come back to Livio first and just ask you the degree to which the work that you're doing enables the reconstitution of the original material in its original position, or whether you're using it as a template to put in new material.
So thank you for your question. I think the degree that is allowed today by 3D scanning technology is more than enough for reproducing the shapes.
Mm-hmm.
And what is interesting to me is that the approach we used is not oriented towards the using technology for going faster, but using technology for going deeper into the knowledge of the object. So if you look at the forest, for example, the way in which the architect in chief in charge of the restoration decided to drive the restoration project is like a parallel level of construction of a new reality of the forest, of course, based on the scientific knowledge about the past state, but it is according to the respect of all the craftsmen knowledge about the carpentry, but in line with the today's constraints and the today's opportunity for a restoration project. But within the digital dimension, we can store both this level of description. So we can store the description related to the archaeological observation that can be fostered tomorrow into other insights from a scientific point of view, from a material analysis point of view. So we have to consider that the digital technologies are producing today like a parallel reality that we can use for further studies tomorrow. So this is not only related to the restoration project. It could be useful, of course, and you have to choose the best technology to do to drive your idea, and of course you have to mix past and today technologies. But the digital dimension is more related to the memorization of knowledge, right. Also included all the knowledge produced today, and a restoration project is a moment of collective production of new knowledge.
Great, thank you. I'm across my mind flits the thought, wouldn't it be fun if we could just add to the panel here Ruskin and Viollet-le-Duc and see what they have to say? Does anybody want to come back on those thoughts from Livio? Chuck it open.
I'd like to just go on that. I found it really interesting going through the creation of the nave, as it were. We were using the timber that came out from the forest, the trees that were coming out, and each one was labeled. So of course, all that data set, and as we were building the trusses, we had to make sure, and it was up to us as well, make sure those tags stayed on the tree all the way through that process. And then all of that information is fed into Livio's data sets. So of course, as he was saying, all that information can be available for future studies on the trees, on longevity, all of these other factors.
Yes, that we're really providing knowledge for the future as well as the buildings for the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Alex.
Jane, I mean, Livio, I'm terribly envious of that 3D, 4D image you have of Notre Dame. We'd love to get to that point at the Minster one day. We're collecting enormous amounts of data of our cathedral, and one of the issues that we're having is to think of the future and how you access that digital data in 50 to 100 years' time. Like you, we have the most wonderful archive, but how, we look at the issue of accessing floppy disks from 20 years ago. In 20 years' time, the digital data we're recording now, how do we access that? So I think it's more of a point rather than a question to you, but something I think we all need to be mindful of, collecting all this incredible data, but future-proofing it.
If I can just come back to that, I think that's been a major issue for the Archaeological Data Service at the University of York. and it might be worth us just running that past them. But I was interested, Claudine, that you were saying you had such enormous quantities of data that you are now actually introducing AI into the processing of that. And I wonder whether everybody else is doing that as well. Is that just something that's happening with the stained glass, that we're using AI to process the data?
Yes, yes. So the idea is to make the analysis. So we analyze 6 panels from the windows from Maréchal de Metz from 19th century, and this project is ongoing. And we analyze the glass composition with peak speed analyze, and you have the quantitative analyze, and also we analyze the painting, the grisaille, and we use a specific RBS analyze. It means you have the surface, but you go deep in the stratigraphy, in the cross section. So you can imagine if you have a small surface from 2-3 centimeters, and the deep, the quantity of data you have, and to try to be quick and fast, and we use the artificial intelligence to I'm not the expert on this topic. Astrid is really so incredible with the use of this technology, and it will be useful because this is the first time we will use it. So thanks to Notre Dame, in one way, we have to see all the positive points, you know, and it will be useful for all the other analyses, and also for ceramics, for painting, for different material. And we try also to use it for when you have the idea is to analyze when you have your glass, you have different kind of painting on the surface. So the idea is to go deep on the material without non-invasive, non-destructive techniques, and you make the analyze, and you have the information from the grisaille, from le lavis, from the yellow, silver, and from your glass. This is the project. So we are the results are really interesting, and we think we can present everything in 6 months.
Brilliant. And everybody who's watching, don't forget that, of course, the slides and the references that Claudine put up at the end, you'll be able to get back to those so that you can do a deeper dive into that. So what we've looked at really is technology in support of craftsmanship, technology in support of deeper knowledge, technology in support of the economics of running these enormous buildings of such complexity. Are there any downsides? I mean, I'm seeing loads and loads of upsides. Does anybody have any downsides they want to express? Alex?
Jane, it's not really a downside, and it's been lovely to hear the presentations from my colleagues on the panel, that we're all learning to use this new technology, and we all care deeply about the buildings we are charged with looking after, and you know, there's a huge weight of responsibility there, and we're all doing our best at the moment for our buildings, but only time will tell if the technology that we're implementing and the changes in techniques that we might be employing are the right things to do. So York Minster, for example, our Victorian ancestors put completely the wrong type of limestone on the cathedral, and we're now, which is now decaying rapidly because they didn't realize that mag lime and keton reacted, and so we're having to restore parts of the building that shouldn't really need to be restored for another 150 years. So I think it's just that point that we all take great care in what we do, but to be mindful that we're learning to use this new technology, and not to run before we can walk, metaphorically.
Yeah, absolutely. It's.
If I can add,
yes, Livio.
I think all these remarks are perfect to me today, because we have not to consider technology like the opportunity to change, but we have to consider it within a transition, a midterm or a long-term transition in which we are involved. And when we are able to, to make evolve our research protocols or the professional protocols with technology, we are probably able to maintain and not only the results of the technology, but the technology themselves. I mean that, for example, for coming back to the problem of the conservation of data, the conservation of data is a problem when we produce data and then we store and we archive data, and then we come back to the data after several years. We probably have to identify new ways to insert the production of this data, to make this data, to maintain this data alive during the life of a building, in order to install this production that comes from all the stakeholders, or all the humans that embed knowledge into this data, directly linked to the physical object that we are caring.
Yes, yes, and I don't. In many ways, I don't think that's a new problem. I produced a document about a monument in Yorkshire about 25 years ago, and nobody can find a copy of it anywhere. Physical copy. So I think the preservation of data, and it's to do with it's to do with libraries, which we need, and a lot of this to me has huge political implications. That these disasters are appalling, but they draw the attention of politicians to the fact that citizens really want these buildings, and they want them to be protected, and they want them to be looked after, and they want them to be conserved. And the efforts that are required for that go a long way beyond that sense that it's just an added extra. It's a huge political issue, I think, to get governments around the world to take this very seriously. And I don't know whether anybody else. I mean, I like the idea of the virtual Notre Dame. I think it's brilliant. I also like the notion that I can go and stand in Notre Dame in a few years' time. Sorry, Alex.
I was just going to say, I think European governments helpfully take a different approach. I mean, the British government, I mean, all of the 42 Anglican cathedrals receive no regular government funding. And, we are custodians of the history and DNA of our country in these magnificent buildings. So it's a point really well made, Jane. And I don't know how we get around that. And I mean, we're slightly comparing apples with pears with the incredible work that Notre Dame is doing at the moment, which is a response to an emergency, where what we're doing at York is almost business as usual, caring for the decaying fabric of the building on a budget that we have to fundraise for, and we can only do so much. So I have to come from this with a not on a purist approach, because, as you said, there are realities of economy here. Until our government wake up to that, we have to look at technology to support the work we do, because glass is falling. Well, it's not falling out, but the stone is decaying. That's holding our precious medieval stained glass into its position. So,
yeah, absolutely. So it's people like to think that heritage is a sort of nice chocolate boxy sideline, but actually it is a huge economic and political issue. I've got a question here from the audience. Are there tips for keeping up to date with current and upcoming technologies or international networks to follow with regards to conservation, restoration, traditional trades and historic buildings? I don't know if anybody we've only got a very few minutes left. I don't know if anybody wants to respond to that immediately. Yeah, Alex.
I have a brilliant recommendation, which is Marmamac in Italy, which is an industry show where with all of the technology around, but it's specifically stone related, but it's an incredible exhibition held annually.
And are there online ways to access that as well as actually delightfully going to Italy?
There are, yes, they have a website, and our Centre of Excellence has a website where we're sharing all of the data we're collecting. So, and if anyone's interested in getting in touch with me, I'll just put my email address in the chat.
Great. Okay, and we'll put those things up for when we put out the recorded version of this. Yeah, Marmamac. I can see that now. We'll
thank you.
And of course, you know, there's plenty of remote access to Notre Dame, and we'll have a think about what international networks there are that both professionals and interested folk can address. And with that, we have 2 minutes to go. So I'm going to wind up and say, that was amazing. That knocked my socks off. Thank you so much, everybody, for such a thoughtful and inspiring hour and a half of really thinking about, you know, what are all the issues around this very, very rapidly developing and changing area of science, technology, and craftsmanship. And the really strong message that I'm taking away from it is what an enormous favour we are doing to our historic buildings by working really hard on this and trying to develop ways to understand them better, to look after them better, and to look after them in a timely way. So very, very many thanks to all four of you, and I've hugely enjoyed that. Thank you to our audience. Hope that you have enjoyed that as well. I'm just having a look. Yes, just a thank you from somebody for a very interesting session, which, you know, I would echo. It's been absolutely brilliant. I hope to meet the other three of you in person at some stage in the future. Thank you very much, and thank you from the Festival of Ideas. Watch this space because we will put some of those links up. Thank you very much. Goodbye.